Who are the best and worst of the new offensive coordinator play caller hires among the AFC teams? We rank all 9 OCs of note here on this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com. My co-host, Michelle Madjuk of NFL.com, and all the great insights she provides there, is off today on this Friday. So I'll be bringing it home for the end of the week here. So catch up on all the good stuff we've talked about there with the second-year and third-year players and their fantasy football outlooks. Today, again, ranking the offense coordinator / play callers that will have notable impact on teams in fantasy football from worst to best here. So we'll start with 9, go all the way to 1 on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we're going to do a couple exclusions here. Davis Webb is now the new offense coordinator for the Broncos under Sean Payton, but Sean Payton will still call plays. So Webb moving a little bit up there because Pete Carmichael Jr. was let go. He ends up there in a Saints reunion with Joe Brady in Buffalo. Brady took over from Sean McDermott as the head coach. He will still handle the play calling duties. So not much changing here for Bo Nix and Josh Allen in terms of philosophy and play calling. So don't need to worry about that with variables coming into play. But we do need to worry about the Dolphins. A lot of things are being blown up in Miami with Coach Jeff Hafley taking over, the former Packers defense coordinator. He obviously is not going to call plays on that side of the ball. So offensively, they're going to Bobby Slowik, formerly of the Texans. He got replaced after doing some good work with C.J. Stroud as a rookie. They had some playmakers there. We saw the Nico Collins breakout while he was there, but then the wide receiver injuries, the limitations, especially Tank Dell going down, and then Stephon Diggs after that, and then the transition of the running game of Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, all those things that happened kind of were heading the Texans to a tough situation with their guy now, Nick Cali, and that has kind of been the case there. Their offensive line issues definitely played a part in slowing down what Slowik could do in Houston. He was the scapegoat. Look, they're having some of the same issues with Cali going forward, so they'll have to figure that out. But Bobby Slowik, number one order of business, do you keep Tua Tagovailoa as the quarterback? Now, Slowik, much like the previous head coach, offensive play caller Mike McDaniel, comes from the 49ers and the Kyle Shanahan tree. So there's potential because Tua is very hard to trade. Here, they're going to have to eat a lot of money, eat some of his salary. The dead money is going to cost a lot against the cap. So there's a chance now that Tua could be back for one more year, especially with Daniel gone and just the sour taste of being benched there for Quinn Ewers late in the season gone. So Tua might be willing to come back. The Dolphins may not have much of a choice given how much they're paying Tua. But Slowik just doesn't do a lot for me in terms of this. I mean, Devin Achane is a talented back, and he's still probably going to be the key of this offense. Tyreek Hill is released here. So immediately they're handcuffed here, trying to rebuild this offense. So Slowik has a very unenviable task here. And in terms of fantasy impact, like we're looking at Devin Achane right now. Jalen Waddle has some appeal, of course, with Tyreek Hill gone, but it's pretty dead here. We're not sure the quarterback is going to be. Achane is kind of on an island here with this offensive production, and I don't see too much changing. I think it still has to go through Devin Achane there. So interesting move here by the Dolphins. We'll see how it all comes together. I thought they might borrow more from the Packers and just not go to a former offense coordinator of the Texans, but that's how we're looking at it going forward. So he comes in at number 9. Now, number 8, you may not even notice this move. It is Frank Reich replacing Tanner Engstrand. So Engstrand did not last with his fellow Lions assistant Aaron Glenn, moving over from defense coordinator to be the Lions coach in waiting there for the Jets. He took over the Jets. It was a disastrous season. Aaron Glenn was not one and done, but he had to make changes. He's under pressure here in year 2. So now you get Frank Reich, of all people, coming in, the former Colts head coach. We know he's the former Panthers head coach there as well. So very interesting move here. Gets a veteran in there. And now the question is, what do we do at quarterback? Now, Frank Reich didn't work out in Carolina at all with Bryce Young. That was a very short tenure. Didn't even last one season with the Colts. He had some of Andrew Luck and was able to do some things there. But Reich, I think, is a pretty good overall offensive mind. I think the execution, getting it through, is going to depend on who their quarterback is. So right now, I'm not sure what that means for Breece Hall. I don't know if he'll necessarily return. Reich has used the tight end well. Maybe that'll help Mason Taylor. But you have Garrett Wilson. He needs some other help at wide receiver. So it's really hard with these teams with uncertain quarterback situations to feel great about what's going to happen. This is maybe why they're pushing to franchise tag Breece Hall a little bit, so they have something for Reich to make the foundation of the offense with. But he's interesting. He's had his ups and downs throughout his career, not just calling plays, but leading teams as a coach. He's, of course, spent time with the Eagles, Chargers as well. So, again, he does bring a lot of experience where Engstrand was just inexperienced totally. He was coming over from Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and not having a lot of experience there. So when you look at that, Frank Reich steadies the Jets, but I don't think it's a job that we're going to get excited about and what he could do with the Jets just quite yet, because we got to find a lot of the answers. Is Justin Fields going to be released? What are they going to do at quarterback without the number 1 pick? A lot of challenges ahead for Frank Reich as well as Bob Slowik. Now, number 7 is the one that I wanted to like more, but I don't. It's Todd Monken going to the Browns, and he took with him the Ravens running game coordinator, Travis Switzer. So that's the new offensive brain trust in Cleveland. Stealing from Baltimore is not a bad idea with what they did with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. So you figure this is going to be a run-heavy team that sets up the pass downfield. They've been very run-heavy because of Lamar and Henry the past couple of years of Monken. Monken did help Lamar Jackson win an MVP with some of his play calling, using the running game and getting the downfield passing, playing off that. Henry was a big part of what they're doing the last couple of years, of course. So I think this favors the running backs, but then we got to figure out how long is Quinshon Judkins going to be out? When is that timeline going to accelerate for him to be back on the field? Do they like Dylan Sampson in a bigger role here because he's versatile? Do they like a committee approach where we've seen that as well before Henry with the Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins? So there's a lot of different ways the Browns can go about it. I just can't get a good read on what they're going to do here. Again, Shedeur Sanders, look, there were some that said the Ravens might be interested in stashing him as a backup for the Monken offense last year behind Jackson. That didn't materialize. He went in the 5th round to the Browns there. So the Ravens had the opportunities to take him. They didn't. So that's the first thing they're going to have to figure out here. Do they go out and get a Malik Willis who might fit the system better? Do they look at the other free agents that might help? Right now, it looks like Willis would be the best fit because he's a running quarterback that can help the running game and throw the ball downfield pretty well here. So that would seem to align with philosophies of Monken and Switzer with what they want to do and try to take the Ravens back to Cleveland in a way and bring that offense into play there. So I'm going to wait and see on Monken, but again, some of these cupboards are bare, and that's why you can't really see too much impact yet. They've got a lot of work to do with their general manager and head coach to just fill up these cups a little bit. The talent is just not there in these situations. So we'll see these come to fruition at some point with who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be kind of the key personnel in these teams. But in the state of where these teams are, they are definitely the 3 bottom of the offensive coordinator hires. Now we'll get into the next group. There's more promise in the next group, and then the most promise coming up for teams that really helped out their quarterbacks. We'll get into all that here after we hear from one of our sponsors. This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. it's a very exciting time because you can win a trip to the NBA Finals live and in person. FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future. You'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures at this time of year, whether it's getting a team picked to win the championship or grabbing a conference title. It's adding that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on NBA Future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Before we continue the show and count down the coordinators 6 through 4, play callers that are going to have an impact as well, we have to tell you, thanks so much for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Michelle and I really appreciate it. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live Locked On Fantasy Football every day. Now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Fantasy Football with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's get into the 6th notable coordinator hire. Now, we may not have noticed this one either, but we know Matt Nagy left, but we didn't necessarily remember Eric Bieniemy coming back to Kansas City. So he goes back in that role, slots under Andy Reid. Reid is still the play caller, but Nagy had a big input there with what they were doing. And now they go back to Bieniemy. They don't like to upset the apple cart much in Kansas City. They like some familiar guys and concepts that can work with what Andy Reid is already doing. So now let's go to Bieniemy. Why is this big deal? Well, I'll tell you this. They need to get their running game going. And that has been a big problem. And not just the running game going in terms of getting the production and getting more efficiency, but just finding the right personnel. Kareem Hunt, look, he had to be plugged and played in there because they were having injury issues. Then you had Isaiah Pacheco constantly hurt for this team. So they had to get Hunt to do that. Then they had flashes of Brashard Smith, but they didn't really commit to him having a big role on either passing situations or early downs. So I think they might need to blow this up. And why I say Bieniemy might be critical here is because Jeremiah Love is sitting in the right wheelhouse for the Chiefs to take early in the first round. Because, look, they need to have one guy that they can keep on the field and can do everything for Patrick Mahomes. Right now, they don't have that guy. Pacheco is not a guy you can keep on the field. Hunt is getting old and getting worn down. Brashard Smith, too inexperienced. But you look at Jeremiah Love, number 9 overall pick, is belonging to Kansas City. That's a sweet spot to take Love. They're a team that can afford to do that. Now, I know we'll say, hey, they got to work on their offensive line. They got to get some other things prioritized on this offense, maybe rebooting further wide receiver or tight end with Travis Kelce near the end and not much behind Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. But I think the running back is what they need a lot. They can look also in free agency. I know there might not be a lot out there. Kenneth Walker could test the market and try to go to champs, but again, he's a limited back. He has durability issues, and he can only really play his best on early downs here. So that would be kind of expensive, especially coming off the Super Bowl MVP, to go after Walker. I don't see that happening. I think Breece Hall would be the big splurge there if they do that. With his versatility, it seems like he would be a very good fit in Andy Reid's offense, especially catching passes there. So I think this is what this does. I think Bieniemy's return says they can sell themselves as a good destination and have their pick of running back upgrades here that are really going to help Patrick Mahomes as an asset of the backfield, not just providing a little bit more balance, but also someone who can protect, clean him up on those passing situations, also run routes and have an impact in the open field. So that's why I like this Bieniemy rehire, so to speak, with the Chiefs. Even though he's not calling plays, I think he'll have a big impact. Now, let's go to the Ravens. They stole from Ben Johnson, and the Bears, who stole from the Lions, who stole then Ben Johnson to the Bears, and then we had Ben Johnson stealing from the Broncos with Declan Doyle, his offense coordinator. Well, the Ravens have taken him as the OC for Jesse Minter's tenure here, beginning with John Harbaugh fading. So John Harbaugh, we'll see what they do. We'll break down the NFC coordinators there at one point with Matt Nagy. Interesting ties in with Bieniemy and Doyle. But now Doyle takes over for Lamar Jackson. So this is the latest coordinator. He's had only 3, Greg Roman, Todd Monken, as we mentioned before, now with the Browns, and Declan Doyle. So he brings some of those concepts that we saw with Bo Nix. So he knows athletic quarterbacks from his time there in Denver, but he also knows that Caleb Williams was a plus athlete and could make some plays. So I think it's actually underrated in terms of what Doyle can do for Lamar Jackson. He's a young dude, Doyle, but he's gotten some good experience in going with Sean Payton and now Ben Johnson. There's a lot of pedigree there that he can do a really good job with the Ravens. He's going to keep the strength of the running game going. That was definitely what the Bears did there to take pressure off Caleb Williams. So that's good news for Derrick Henry. He doesn't seem to slow down. Had another big year closing strong despite some inefficiency early. He got rolling, and we saw the old Derrick Henry. So this is good for Henry. This is good for Lamar Jackson. Now, in terms of the other guys, I think they would look – they need to blow up this thing with the tight ends. Isaiah Likely is a free agent. Mark Andrews is getting older. Do they need to be more traditional with their offense in terms of, okay, we need to get 3 receivers to spread the field? Now, Rashad Bateman has been okay, and Zay Flowers has had his moments. He actually was really good last year, surprisingly down the stretch as they give more and more targets. So Zay Flowers, I think he's better, though, if you have somebody deflecting as the top target there. They really didn't have consistency there with Andrews and Likely with what the production they wanted at tight end. So again, this could go more traditional receivers, go to that 1-2-3 where you have the XYZ and this more of that 11 personnel that we haven't seen as much of here with the Ravens. So there's a lot of things that could change. Here we know that Doyle was interchangeable a little bit with Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, having those 2 tight ends, and then having the 3 capable wide receivers when they were all healthy together, Roma Dinze, Luther Bird, and DJ Moore. So I think what you'll see is that versatility in formation. So it won't be stuck in 11. It won't be stuck in 12. It'll be hybrid based on situations, maybe more mixing up the personnel to create some better favorable downfield matchups for Lamar Jackson in the passing game. At the same time, how important it is to stay committed to the run and also let your quarterback run and make plays when it needs to happen. So Declan Doyle is a very underrated hire. I like him at number 5. Now, number 4, the Steelers have nowhere to go but up. So they go with Mike McCarthy. He has confirmed he will take the play calling duties, much like he had with the Cowboys and the Packers in his previous stop. So yeah, pretty good resume, right? You go to one storied franchise, the Packers win a Super Bowl there, go to the Cowboys have a little bit of success there. Now you're with the Steelers, who don't have losing seasons. So Mike McCarthy goes. I think this is a ploy to get Aaron Rodgers back in the fold here for 2026. You also, an interesting hire that he made as the offensive coordinator, he went with a Vikings tight end and passing game formerly coach, Brian Angelicho, who is a guy that worked under Kevin O'Connell, who we know has a very friendly passing game. Now, this is good news here for the Steelers and what they want to do with their main guys. I think Pat Freiermuth is someone that can have a big role, but he hasn't been consistent in that role. And then you need to get a more clear definition of what they want to do with their personnel. And then they do use the tight ends really well in the McCarthy offense, and that's been something that Aaron Rodgers has also appreciated going back to his days with McCarthy in Green Bay. And I think this is a big thing because Darnell Washington, if he's healthy, should have a bigger role in this team playing off what Freiermuth can do. So I think they need to be a little more inventive. Arthur Smith was the guy that used or supposed to use a lot of 12 personnel. I don't think he used it very well to make up for the fact that they were really thin at wide receiver. So we come from now Mike McCarthy knowing that they need to have more wide receivers on this team. It can't be just DK Metcalf. So they might be aggressive, getting a guy that can win on the outside a little bit better, a smoother route runner. There's some guys in the draft like that. A Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Mekhi Lemon might be more in the Steelers drafting wheelhouse later. Out of USC, technical good route runner. You also have Denzel Boston, who can stretch the field out of Washington. Cardell Tate, I don't think he'll slip there, but the Steelers can be aggressive and go after him to give another guy to play with Metcalf. So my thinking is Look, the tight ends, Freiermuth is a good short area guy. Washington coming off an injury. I think they're going to focus more on the three receivers. McCarthy and the Cowboys had some really pass-happy seasons. And I think they're going to look at that and say, look, we need to have a little bit more balance, but we also need some more playmakers on the field for Aaron Rodgers. So the tight ends, I think, will be helped a lot by Angelicho's hiring, but the passing game will benefit more. Maybe you'll also see the hybrid looks that the Ravens should have with Declan Doyle, and that'll help. So I think with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he's smart enough to handle multiple formations, 12 personnel, 11 personnel, 3 receivers. And now it's about getting that personnel available who can execute for him, and I think that was the biggest problem for the Steelers offense in 2025. Now, so we went to 6-5-4. The Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers did pretty well with their new offensive coordinator and play caller hires. Now we'll get into the top 3. I think there's a clear top 3. We'll get into those. And a couple of them are in the AFC West. So we'll talk about them in our final segment coming right up. All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which just might be sleepers. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5 Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors and has something for everyone. 5 Hour Energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. Now, I told you earlier when I broke this down, I love the tropical flavors. So it's really hard for me to debate who my number one pick is, but I'll give it a shot here. We have Hawaiian Breeze. I can feel the breeze, taste the caffeine, made with passion fruit, orange, guava flavor, sweet yet smooth, tangy yet tart. There's also the tropical burst, which I'm also partial to. The island vibes, the delicious combination of pineapple and apricot flavors, juicy, fruit-forward tropical profile, sweet with a light tang, smooth, rounded flavor, bright and sunny taste impression. Now, that's also a very strong resume, but how about the sleeper pick, strawberry banana? I'd like to get into on this for sure. Tropical delight with strawberry taste that goes in everything from smoothies and milkshakes to cakes and ice cream. Sweet strawberry flavor up front, soft, mellow banana finish, smooth, creamy fruit smoothie that's easy to drink. So that's a lot of fun. You can check out all the new flavors there. All you have to do is go to 5 Hour Energy and check it out, 5hourenergy.com. 5 your new favorite flavor, 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. All right, it is time to close the show and reveal my top 3 offensive coordinator hires here and play callers for the 2026 season in terms of the fantasy football impact they'll have. Let's go to Clint Kubiak, the much-wanted Seahawks offensive coordinator, the Sporting News offensive coordinator of the year in general. He brings along Andrew Janico, who is the Seahawks quarterbacks coach. So the Seahawks brain trust that helps Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, they know to go to the Raiders, and the Raiders know that they're going to get Fernando Mendoza with the number 1 overall pick. There's no thoughts about trading this pick. They're going to take the Indiana Heisman Trophy winning and national championship winning quarterback. This is a great way to enter the league for Mendoza with Kubiak. And you also have weapons that are established. This is exciting because you have Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, 2 other first-round picks with an enormous skill player talent here. So this is really good. I mean, Kubiak ran a 50-50 balanced offense. He fed his go-to guy a lot. Great news for Bowers at this very moment. I think they'll be aggressive and go after a top receiver either in the draft or in free agency. They have the tools to do that. So then you get a wide receiver in there, replace Jacoby Myers, replace what you had in Devontae Adams, get him in with Jeanty, who can be used well in the passing game. They won't have to interchange the way they did on passing downs and in key situations between Kenneth Walker and a Zach Charbonnet. Now Kubiak and Janico can ride with one dude here in the backfield who can do everything. Ashton Jeanty did prove that as rookie. So this is great news for Ashton Jeanty. We've talked about it. We're excited for it. here. The Kubiak hire is really good, as well as Janico comes over from the Seahawks. Again, Mendoza should be in good position to be a fantasy sleeper. I'll talk about that a lot more as we go forward this offseason. The Raiders have to make some moves to their offensive line, get a few more weapons, and you might be cooking with gas here for Mendoza's rookie season being a nice sleeper season. Might have a little bit more appeal than, say, wherever Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa goes or Daniel Jones. He could really have that appeal in this Kubiak offense. That's how important it is. The Raiders just have a little ways to go. They got to build the infrastructure better with the line and the skill positions, and then you'll be really in a position where you can feel that Mendoza is going to have immediate impact with his production in terms of fantasy football, at least as a QB2 that you can put in, or a super flex play that you definitely want to have later in drafts. So love that potential for the Raiders, starting with Genty, Bowers, and Mendoza. Now let's go to the second best hire. It is also in the AFC West. It is Mike McDaniel landing with the Chargers. Is interesting. He was with Tua, who was taken in that 2020 draft. One pick later, it was Justin Herbert at quarterback. So now he goes from Tua to Herbert, another top quarterback that isn't Joe Burrow from the 2020 first round of the NFL draft. This is great news for Justin Herbert. Herbert is already going up fantasy boards here into the top 10. He's not been a guy that's consistently done that since his rookie season, but look at the weapons here. Even if Keenan Allen doesn't return, you got some people to work with. Ladd McConkey would be number one. Quentin Johnson stretching the field. We'll see what they want to do with Oronde Gadsden, too, and make him a bigger part at tight end. But all these weapons are going to benefit whoever's out there on the field most here from Mike McDaniel. And then, of course, you have Omari and Hampton out of the backfield. So, no, Devin Achane was a big-time performer. We know McConkey could fill that key slot role of Jan Waddle and Tyreek Hill, that hybrid big play guy that can make plays. Quentin Johnson can stretch the field with a big arm playing off the running game. So this is really good for all the Chargers' key playmakers that they return here. They needed this boost. Greg Roman, again, gets stale after a while. We saw the Ravens when he was replaced by Todd Monken. It kind of energized the offense. So Greg Roman just a little bit stodgy with what he was doing. He didn't really have the running quarterback. I think he was a misfit for what they want to do. McDaniel is not a guy that needs to run his quarterback. We've seen it. That's going to be the one downside for Justin Herbert, but we've also seen Tua have a high completion percentage, throw the ball downfield. Now, the thing is, Herbert is a much better physical talent than Tua Tagovailoa in terms of pushing the ball downfield, making things happen with his legs. So he gives you a plus already with those elements in his game. So now he gets that, and plus receivers that are established. Now, the key for the Chargers is how much work do they have to do in the offensive line? Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, they can be really good bookend tackles, but how healthy are they going to be? I think they could work in the interior line as well to upgrade that. But McDaniel, the tableau of the Chargers offense is really favorable for him to paint a masterpiece here in 2026. The pressure's off. He doesn't have to be the entire team manager at this point. Jim Harbaugh is going to take care of that. So he doesn't have to worry about that. Harbaugh's got all that. He can bring offensive concepts. McDaniel can just be his evil, mad scientist self, quirky, intelligent, use all of that and do it for the pure sake of the offensive production instead of worrying about all other things that seem to be a little bit overwhelming for him in Miami. So I'm really excited about this. The Chargers, again, are in really good shape. Now, the Chargers would be number one, except I have to go with the Tennessee Titans. Brian Daboll. Daboll, the Giants, that didn't look all that good, right? But Jackson Dart showed some upside while Daboll was there before he got fired and interim coach Mike Kafka had to take over. Brian Daboll is a very experienced offensive coach. He's worked with Nick Saban at Alabama in college. He worked with Bill Belichick in the NFL. He's a Canadian sensation when he's calling plays. Again, he is not meant to be maybe that organized, big-time head coach handling all the ups and downs of a team. But when he's just out there calling plays, we saw the impact he had with Josh Allen in Buffalo. This is going to be a really good impact here on Cam Ward. Young quarterback, Josh Allen really matured and grew up fast because he had the influence of Daboll in Buffalo. Cam Ward gives you that strong arm. He gives you a really good athletic ability to move around and make plays. Now the key is, again, they need to figure out what their weaponry is like, but they have the most offensive spending power here with their salary cap being almost 100 million under. So they can spend plenty if they want to upgrade here. They're okay at running back, you would think, with Tony Pollard. Their offensive line, they'll probably keep investing. They've made some picks there, J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski. So that'll probably continue to be a priority. Left tackle, Dan Moore Jr. didn't work out as well. But I think that's going to be a thing they have to look at, upgrade the line a little bit. I think they have to say goodbye to Calvin Ridley, let Alec Ayamanor and Shamiri DK and Gunnar Helm be the future of this offense in terms of skill players. So there's some little pieces that you like to come together for the Titans. You have Robert Saleh. He won't interfere with the offensive game plan. He's been with Kyle Shanahan and some other guys. So he'll take care of the defense. They'll get defensive-minded and better on that side of the ball. So this will give Brian Daboll all the autonomy to do what he wants on offense and not worry about everything else, the things that were tough there for him with the Giants that led to his firing. He can just focus on mentoring and leading a young quarterback. That's what he does best. And Cam Ward, watch out, Cam Ward. And for him this season, he had 4, again, multiple touchdown games down the stretch. Light went on. He was starting to figure things out as a passer. So this could be a real big sleeper second year for Cam Ward. So there you have it. There's a look at the 9 notable and new offensive coaching hires here in the AFC. We got to do this for the NFC. We'll do it at some point this offseason. Long way to go here. We'll have a lot of good draft stuff for you as well as we get closer to the prospects and Mendoza and what all these guys can do from the draft class. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today, and thanks for tuning in all week. Make sure you subscribe and follow us so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you over to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel, or audio. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. For Locked On Fantasy Football, for Michelle Majuk, this has been Vinnie Iyer. We'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.